Good afternoon. It is so good to be with you, and it is my great pleasure to welcome all of you to the 219th Convocation of Bowdoin College. Over these 2 centuries, our college community has gathered together in some form to mark the occasion of opening the academic year, but it has never been like this. We begin today with an invocation offered by the Reverend Eduardo Pazos, director of our Rachel Lord Center for Religious and Spiritual Life. Eduardo.
Please join me in a moment of reflection. As improbable as it might once seemed, we're all together today to celebrate the beginning of yet another academic year in the life of our college. Yes, the last 6 months have presented us with great pain, fear, and challenges like no other time in modern history. And we have also felt great joy for the new possibilities this world is opening up for us. Class of 2024, may your next 4 years here with us and all the different models of learning be marked not by fear of the unknown, but by the certainty of the joy we do know. May you know the joy of perseverance, that resolve to not give up and keep on going unto the end. The joy of your family members and loved ones rooting for you from afar. The joy of learning, questioning, deconstructing, and finding new paths. The joy of discovering new lands, new questions, new possibilities that were unknown to you until now. The joy that comes from getting to know yourself, your strength, beauty, and courage. May this next part of your journey be full of grace, that gentle, compassionate, patient, and kind view of the world, yourself, and others. May your interactions with your floor mates and classmates, both virtual and in person, be surrounded by a cloud of grace and compassion. More than ever before, may you find grace in your going in and going out of your learning spaces, as you join others in tents, dorm rooms, and virtual spaces all over our country and our world. May you find it in your readings, your assignments, and your interactions with your favorite people on campus. May you find grace for yourself, grace to spend time alone when needed, grace to ask for help, grace to find new communities, and grace to recognize that our failures are not a reflection of our identity. Instead, they are a reflection of our persistence and stamina to learn from them and keep on going. And for the next 4 years, but more specifically for the next season, may you find the ability to see yourself as you really are. May you see your awesomeness, intelligence, humor, tenacity, your strength. May you see that what you have accomplished over the last few years is nothing short of amazing. And what you will accomplish in the future will surprise all of us, including yourself. May you see that you carry within yourself the strength of your ancestors, the prayers and thoughts of your communities, the longevity of your traditions, the resilience of the lands you call home, and the hope of your loved ones for a brighter tomorrow. May you spend the next 4 years journeying into your own world of self-discovery, and may you come out in awe of how remarkable you are. For the next 4 years, may you grow in joy, grace, and self-awareness. May you grow to see what a beautiful world we live in, and may you work to protect it and make it better every single day.
Thank you, Eduardo. Good afternoon. I'm Janet Lohman, and I'm the Senior Vice President and Dean for Student Affairs. Today, I get to share with you voices from Bowdoin's past. We are an intimate part of what we live through. These words were shared with the Bowdoin community by longtime English professor Herbert Ross Brown in his 1972 baccalaureate address on the eve of his retirement. Professor Brown, who taught American literature at Bowdoin for 47 years, spent time in his remarks reflecting on all he had witnessed during his time at Bowdoin: wars, racial strife, political divisiveness, and the pain and sorrow that impact a college community when the world feels so, as he expressed it, frustratingly fruitless. For many of us, today can very much feel like one of those periods. In preparing for my remarks for today, I spent time looking over the voices from some of the troubled times in Bowdoin's past, seeking out periods where the world felt broken and so full of despair, to try to learn how the people back then made it through. What struck me most about this exercise were the parallels between 1968 and today. Stories in the Orient that year are reflections on race, student activism, the strife of war, protests and assassinations, a divisive political election with a law and order focus, and an overall call to action in what appeared to be a society in decline. Today, our challenges are different, yet stunningly familiar, as we confront a pandemic, continued racial injustice, political tension, economic inequality and distress, student activism, and calls for action across many fronts. In his baccalaureate address in 1968, then acting President Athern Daggett quoted an unnamed colleague, someone he valued highly, who, as Daggett put it, seemed to me to be a perceptive and intelligent observer of the times in which we live. Daggett recounted that this colleague was worried because not since 1860 had the country seemed to be so imminently in danger of splitting apart. In regards to life in America in 1968, Daggett said, "Passing beyond the possibility of reconciliation and accommodation, debate and dialogue, today's events oftentimes yield to assertion and accusation. In 2020, we can imagine these same words being spoken. Just like in 1968, we are in a place of fear, frustration, sadness, and at times despair as we witness many of the same issues and injustices that were being faced when Daggett spoke, accompanied this time by a worldwide pandemic that has infected millions and killed over 850,000 people, more than 180,000 in our country alone. With all of this, it can feel impossible to consider next steps, and yet we will. Herbert Ross Brown's observations nearly 50 years ago remind us that the world faces challenges over and over, and yet we rise and find a way through. We won't kid ourselves, we won't solve every problem, but we find our way individually and collectively by learning from the mistakes we've made and by imagining something better, more humane, something gentler, and something stronger, something that gives us a new level of connection and commitment to the world and to our relationships with one another. We are an intimate part of what we live through, said Brown. Our job today is not merely to survive these times, but to make real progress, using our knowledge of the past, our dreams for the future, and our commitment to the common good. We will always remember where we were in 2020, but it's what we did that will matter. Be well, and thank you for listening.
Thank you, Janet. As we officially open the academic year, it is customary at Convocation to invite a member of our faculty to share insight into an important issue. Professor of Chemistry and Biochemistry, Danielle Dube, focuses much of her research on the study of sugars that coat the cells that compose each and every one of us. Professor Dube will tell you that sugars cover the surfaces of all the cells in our body and that their structures provide meaningful information about cellular identity. She brings her scholarship about such things into the courses she teaches on chemical biology. This afternoon, she weaves aspects of that into what promises to be a compelling talk comprising three themes: her path as a woman in science, the imposter syndrome with which she has struggled and the role community has played in sustaining her. She calls it understanding and dismantling structures, one bacterium at a time. Please join me in welcoming Professor Danielle Dube.
Thank you, President Rose, for the opportunity to speak here today. I am honored to address the faculty, staff, and students who compose a community that I am privileged to be a part of. As we start the academic year and embark upon your college career, we are doing so in ways we could not have conceived of a year ago. We are being asked to navigate near continuous uncertainty in the face of imperfect information. We are being asked to take steps forward with no clear sense of where they will lead. And we are being asked to do so while dealing with profound societal challenges revolving around human health, the economy, and social and racial justice. I believe we all have important perspectives on these subjects, and I'll share mine as a professor of chemistry and biochemistry. I am an experimentalist who develops chemical tools to study the molecular basis of human health and disease. My research focuses on disease-causing bacteria, which have armor that protects them and allows them to proliferate. I seek to understand the molecular structures of that armor so I can dismantle it, ultimately transforming these disease-causing bacteria into harmless ones. I am driven day after day to head to the lab, where my students and I navigate near continuous uncertainty. Like all experimentalists, most of my experiments fail as I undertake them in the face of imperfect information. I choose, though, to explore the unknown because of what this work could lead to. Successes, rare as they may be, shed a pinprick of light on the unknown. And added together, these pinpricks of light from my own work, from the work of countless others who came before me, from work alongside me at Bowdoin and at other institutions, and from the work of those who will come after, will form an image, a small piece of the puzzle that can be leveraged to tackle infectious disease. I undertake work that I find personally meaningful each day, but I did not end up on this path with a clear plan or with self-confidence. When I began college, becoming a chemistry professor was not something I even considered. I liked science and majored in biology, bound for medical school. As I took courses, though, I struggled with feelings of inadequacy, self-doubt, and the fear that others would realize I was a fraud. I now know this has a name: imposter syndrome. These feelings were heightened when I took an infamous pre-med course, organic chemistry. I was so scared for that class. I prepared for failure. But the most unexpected thing happened. I loved organic chemistry. That class changed the way I saw things. It made molecules come alive for me. It helped me understand why chemical building blocks react the way that they do, and how having this predictive level of information is instrumental in crafting life-saving drugs. I was hooked. The following summer, I had another transformative experience. As I undertook my first research project, studying coral reefs off the coast of Mexico, I had the awe-inspiring realization that science is not a collection of facts in a textbook. It is instead a process rooted in exploring the unknown, seeking answers to questions, and having those answers reveal more questions. The biggest surprise was that even me, a college student on a coral reef in a remote part of Mexico, even I could help contribute to the unknown by asking questions no one had before and collecting data to try to answer them. These two experiences fueled me, and they formed the intellectual foundation for where I am now. Despite these amazing experiences in college, my path forward was not written in stone. I still questioned whether I belonged in science. On my first day of graduate school at Berkeley, where I set out to pursue my PhD in chemistry, I looked around the room filled with 50 other incoming students, and I felt like I did not belong. My sense of security and value had crumbled. What was I thinking that I might belong here? That I might be capable of pursuing this path? I sat next to a woman, another first-year PhD chemistry student. Then other women sat nearby. This group of women went to dinner that night. Dinner became a weekly event, and our dinners transformed into daily lunches. I found myself in an uplifting and supportive group of women chemistry students who faced the same fears, who all felt like imposters. We helped each other realize that we could do it, even in the face of repeated experimental setbacks and self-doubt. Even now, in moments of insecurity, we still prop each other up. Had I not met them, things could have gone differently. I might not have been able to muster the strength to repeatedly face my fears. Though the science and the process gripped me, it was the community within science that kept me in this field, that has taught me to negotiate my self-doubt. Based on the data, as a woman chemistry professor, I am an anomaly. Though women earn 50% of chemistry bachelor's degrees and 41% of chemistry doctorates, only 20% of faculty in chemistry departments in the US are women. It's not all bad news. Women with female PhD supervisors are much more likely to become academics than those with male PhD advisors. I count myself among the fortunate, as my research mentors in college, during my PhD, and during my postdoc were brilliant and supportive women. Had I not worked with them, things could have gone differently. At Bowdoin, I have been part of an amazing support network of faculty friends and colleagues, both men and women. These relationships have helped to buoy me through countless challenges. My support network has continued to foster my growth and successes, even in the face of struggles. Some friends from my PhD network were not as lucky. They found themselves in toxic environments that quenched their enthusiasm rather than bolster it. That could have happened to me. Although I have been successful, I still doubt myself and my capabilities. I have been shaped by society in ways that make me constantly question my value in my chosen profession. My imposter syndrome hasn't gone away. It crops up often, though less often than it once did. When I give a talk at a conference in a session with faculty from Harvard and MIT who I idolize, I wonder how I ended up on the invitation list. When I serve on National Institutes of Health grant review panels as one of 2 women in the room of 20 and the only one from an undergraduate institution, I wonder why I'm there. Sometimes I'm still petrified. I have, over time, learned to navigate the fear, acknowledge it, face it, and use what I have learned to guide my students as they enter the field and push it forward. Though my work began with seeking to dismantle the structures that bolster disease-causing bacteria, with growing awareness, my focus has turned to much larger structures that need to be dismantled. I am a white woman from suburban New Jersey, from comfortable socioeconomic class, with parents with advanced degrees. I recognize that my experiences, my feelings of imposter syndrome, my need to find a community, my search for mentors who look like me, are the experiences of someone who, in many ways, is in a position of power and privilege. My point is not that I am a success and that you should try to be like me. Rather, my point is that even the success stories that we point to for diversifying our academic fields and our faculty are barbed. And for each success story, there are countless more failures. We have much to learn to get this right, to create an environment that fosters a sense of community and belonging, where we elevate the voices that society has muted, because each of us has something to contribute. There are those of us who don't want to admit that these power structures exist, that where they are is driven by luck as much as hard work. No matter how insignificant we might feel, how much we might doubt ourselves, or how others might perceive our voices, we have a set of experiences that allow us to bring a unique lens to the table. Illumination from each of these lenses sheds a pinprick of light that, when added together, provide an image and path that will help move society forward as we tackle profound structural challenges revolving around human health, the economy, and social and racial justice. Together, we can dismantle the structures that provide armor to powers that seek to justify and maintain inequity. Perhaps this moment will give us an opportunity to deeply reflect upon problematic structures that exist, that shape our experiences, that elevate some individuals and seed doubt in others, and provide an opportunity for us to create better, stronger support structures at a time when the old ones are showing their weaknesses. As you begin the academic year, I urge you to face challenges and uncertainty head on, to find and create meaning in your days, to foster connections and community, and to fuel, teach, and uplift each other. Good luck.
Thank you, Danielle. Those were remarkable words. Thank you for sharing them with us. I want to begin this afternoon by thanking my faculty and staff colleagues for all of your amazing work over the past 6 months, work that has brought us to today, the opening of our college. I want to welcome our new students, our first year and transfers. We are so pleased that you have joined our community. And I want to welcome back our returning students, most of whom, unfortunately, are not with us on campus. Now, while this ceremony has changed over time and has been shaped by the moment, there is little question that this year's convocation is unlike any other in our history, as is almost everything else that we will do this year. That said, while a great deal will be different, our commitments to a great liberal arts education, to a community dedicated to serving the common good, and to the care and kindness we show to one another remain steadfast. I've entitled my remarks for this afternoon, Denial. How many of us know where the Spanish flu most likely originated? This was the last great pandemic a little over a century ago. How many know what R0 is and why it's important? Or why safety and efficacy are both critical to the successful deployment and development and deployment of a vaccine? Or what the implications are of aerosolization of a virus on safety practices? How many know the gap in infant mortality rates between white Americans and black Americans? The origins and motivations of the lost cause movement, the implications of the idea of the model minority, the theory of eugenics and the policies that it fostered, the facts of redlining, residential segregation, and racial profiling. And just to bring it all together, how many of us are aware of the higher risk to serious outcomes for black and brown Americans from COVID-19, or the utter devastation that the virus has wrought on the Navajo Nation? Now, what is the point of these questions? Why am I talking about the coronavirus and racism in the same breath? You've heard me discuss since the late spring that we are in the midst of two pandemics, one of COVID-19 and the other of racism. They both have profound implications for health, death, jobs, and opportunity, and they reveal much that is flawed about how government works, leadership that is lacking, and the challenges facing our democracy. Although, to be sure, there have been some amazing examples of what can work and what true leadership looks like. And I bring together the virus and racism not because they both represent grave threats, which they do, but because at the root of our inability to successfully deal with them, or to get to a solid path to dealing with them, is denial. The deliberate willingness to dismiss and ignore data, facts, and truth. Instead, driven by a desire to buttress a chosen ideology at all costs, misinformation and lies are substituted in place of facts, data, and truth. And the costs are public safety, justice, and equality. False narratives, some of which have been in play for a very long time, include racial differences in intelligence and work ethic. Immigrants are taking our jobs. Patients of color don't follow medical advice as well as white patients. Asian Americans are responsible for the coronavirus. They include the idea that the virus will disappear, that masks are unnecessary, that asymptomatic individuals do not need to be tested, and that young people can't get the virus, or if they do, they won't get too sick. These tropes are driven by a willful desire to ignore facts and by a disdain for the intellectuals and elites who traffic in them, because they challenge an ideology. Now, sadly, this problem of denial is far from new, nor is it an issue only in our country. But in today's hyper-partisan political environment, it seems to have made it even worse. And with the profound issues we face, the stakes are higher than ever. Opportunity, the quality of life, health, and survival, and the cohesion of society and the system of government are at risk. So what does that have to do with us, with Bowdoin College? And I'd suggest that there are at least two things. The first is that as citizens, we have a duty to engage this fight, to battle and to put down COVID-19, to battle and to put down racism, and to perpetuate our democracy. This requires active engagement, a desire for the facts, and a willingness to fight for truth as a central guidepost. We need to know what is true, be able to distinguish facts and falsehoods, to actively embrace the power and importance of new knowledge and new facts and the search for what is true. And we need to call out stale information, misleading data, and lies for what they are. Increasingly, our society has become one of denial, where facts and truth are swept aside by a predetermined view or political position. Decisions, policy, and even elections are driven by flawed insights, wishful thinking, and deception. As Adrian Barden writes in Scientific American, Americans increasingly exist in highly polarized, informationally insulated, ideological communities occupying their own information universes. Pushing hard against this is an obligation that we each share as citizens. And then there is the mission of our college. Many of you have heard me say or read something that I've written on my view of the 3 essential goals of a great liberal arts education. To help each of us to live a meaningful life, to help each of us to find success and satisfaction in our work, and to be able to participate meaningfully in civic life. The idea of the liberal arts, notwithstanding how that term has become politicized and weaponized more recently, has its origins in antiquity and is an education intended to prepare one to participate in civic life and to be productive and engaged citizens in the debates and decisions of the day. For generation after generation, a Bowdoin education has provided our students with the ability to think critically, to reason, to learn, to be nimble intellectually, and to communicate thoughtfully and persuasively. We develop in them the ability to ask hard questions and the skill and disposition to avoid assuming that just because it's on the internet or said by someone on TV that it's true. This is what we have done at the college for a very long time. And it's this liberal arts education that is exactly what is required to have the skills and disposition to understand and overcome the ugly and dangerous manifestations of denial. The stakes have never been higher. We have never needed liberally educated people more than we do now. And I would suggest that we have never needed Bowdoin and the many other schools like Bowdoin more than we do now. To our students, I would ask that you think about this as you make your way through your time here. Think about what you heard from the 3 colleagues that have shared the stage with me today. The power and the profound insights, both intellectual, emotional, and from the soul, and how important they are in the work that you will do. The education that you are privileged to receive here has great instrumental power, and it will help you to change the world. To my faculty and staff colleagues, thank you. Thank you for continuing a long history of creating and delivering a Bowdoin education, one that makes a difference. By the way, the best evidence indicates that the Spanish flu had its origins in Kansas. And with that, I declare the college open for this academic year. Thank you. And now, it is my great pleasure to introduce 2 of Bowdoin's a cappella groups, the Baretones and Miscellanea, who will lead us in a singing of our alma mater, Ray's songs to Bowdoin.
Songs to Bowdoin praise her fame, and sound abroad her glorious name. To Bowdoin, Bowdoin, lift your song, and may the music echo long o'er whispering pines and campus fair, with sturdy light filling the air. Bowdoin from birth, our nurturer and friend, to thee we pledge our love again.
Fantastic. Thank you for joining us today for this celebration of the opening of our college. And I want to thank Reverend Passos, Dean Lohman, Professor Dube. Thank you for your remarkable, thoughtful, heartfelt remarks. I wish all of our students, faculty, and staff a wonderful start to this most unusual academic year.